You know, when you've been married for 42 years, you think you know a person. Every wrinkle on their face tells a story you've memorized. Every sigh, every smile, you know what they mean before words even leave their mouth. That's what I thought about Harlan.
I was wrong. My name is Eudora Whitaker. Everyone calls me Dory, and I'm 68 years old. I live in Elmwood, Ohio, one of those sleepy Midwestern towns where Friday night fish fries at St. Agnes Church still draw a crowd, and your neighbours know what you had for breakfast before you've finished your coffee. It's the kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to happen, where trust isn't just given, it's woven into the fabric of every handshake, every potluck casserole, every Sunday morning nod across the pews. Harlan was my everything. Deacon at church, retired mill supervisor, the kind of man who quoted psalms in that gravelly voice that made people lean in and listen. Our son Bram and his wife Leora lived just across the river in Dayton, and they'd visit every other Sunday with the grandkids in tow. Lily and Jake, bright-eyed and sticky-fingered, from whatever treats Grandma Dory had waiting. Life was predictable, comfortable, like that old Ferris wheel at the county fair, creaking under the harvest moon year after year. Familiar, safe, expected, until it wasn't. It happened on a Tuesday morning in May. I can still see it like it's playing on a screen in front of me. Harlan sat in his chair by the window, morning light pooling around him like he was posing for a painting. His Bible was open on his lap, Genesis, his favourite, and he had that peaceful look he always got during his devotions. Coffee steaming on the side table, reading glasses perched on his nose, and then he just slumped forward. No cry, no clutching his chest like they show in the movies, just a quiet surrender, like he'd decided to rest and forgot to wake up. The paramedics said it was a massive heart attack, quick, painless, they promised, though I'm not sure they really know. The funeral was 3 days later, St. Agnes packed to the rafters. Everyone called him a pillar of faith, a man of integrity, the kind of husband every woman wishes for. I nodded through it all, numb, accepting casseroles and condolences in equal measure. But I didn't know, couldn't have known, that the man they were eulogizing was a stranger to me. 3 days after we buried him, I was alone in our house on Elm Street. You know that kind of quiet that settles in after someone dies? It's not peaceful. It's suffocating. The hum of the old Frigidaire in the kitchen sounds like thunder. Every creak of the floorboards makes you turn, expecting to see them standing there. I needed comfort, something familiar. So I reached for Harlan's Bible, the worn leather one he'd carried for 30 years, pages soft from constant handling. I thought maybe reading the passages he loved would bring him closer somehow. I opened it to Genesis, where a bookmark still held his place, and that's when it happened. A small brass key tumbled out onto the quilt. It landed with a soft clink, catching the afternoon light, glinting like a tiny accusation. I picked it up, turned it over in my palm. Heavy, old-fashioned. The kind of key that opens something important, something meant to stay locked. At first, I thought it must be for the lockbox in the attic, the one stuffed with yellowed love letters and our marriage certificate from that rainy courthouse wedding back in 1983. But when I climbed those narrow stairs, dust motes dancing in the dim light, the key didn't fit. I tried the desk drawers, the filing cabinet, the toolbox in the garage. Nothing. My hands started to shake. Why would Harlan hide a key in scripture? The book he preached from, the book he swore on. What could possibly need to be locked away from his own wife? That night, I lay awake, the key burning a hole in my nightstand drawer. The house felt different now, like I was a stranger in my own home, surrounded by 42 years of memories that suddenly felt incomplete, edited, like someone had torn pages out of our story and I'd never noticed the gaps. I kept thinking, what if this key unlocks more than metal? What if it cracks open the lies we built our family on? The next morning, my son called. "Mum," Bram said, his voice tight. That particular kind of tension I recognized from when he was a boy and got caught doing something wrong. Dad's estate? We need to talk about finances. I heard Leora in the background, her voice all honeyed concern, but her pauses felt loaded, calculated. There are some complications with Dad's accounts, Bram continued. Things are, well, they're more complicated than we thought. My stomach dropped. Our nest egg, $200,000 from Harlan's pension, and my inheritance from Aunt Faye's farm sale, was supposed to see me through my golden years. Maybe help with the grandkids' college funds. It was security, safety, the reward for a lifetime of hard work. Now Bram was talking about complications. Don't make any decisions until we visit Sunday, he said. Promise me, Mom. But it didn't sound like protection in his voice. It sounded like a warning. I hung up the phone and looked down at the brass key sitting on my kitchen table, catching the morning light. And I whispered to the empty room, Harlan, what were you hiding from me? You ever have one of those nights where sleep just refuses to come? Where you lie there staring at the ceiling and your brain won't shut off no matter how tired your body is? That was me, after Bram's call. I couldn't wait until Sunday. Couldn't just sit in my house pretending everything was fine, while that brass key mocked me from the nightstand. So, at 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely. I went to Harlan's office, that cramped little room off the kitchen where he used to do the bills, and I started digging. Bank statements, tax returns, insurance papers. I went through everything with the kind of focus I hadn't felt in years. My reading glasses kept sliding down my nose as I squinted at tiny print under the desk lamp. Nothing looked unusual. Everything seemed normal. Bills paid on time. Pension deposits regular as clockwork. The kind of boring, reliable finances you'd expect from a man who preached thrift at every church potluck. But then, tucked in the back of his desk drawer, under a stack of old mill supervisor's manuals, I found a business card. First National Bank, Safety Deposit Services. A phone number. An account number written in Harlan's cramped handwriting on the back. My hands started shaking. Safety deposit box. That's what the key was for. And suddenly, I understood why my stomach had been churning since Bram's call. It wasn't just worry. It was instinct. The same instinct that told me when Bram was 7 and swore he didn't break Mrs. Patterson's window. I knew he was lying by the way his hands fidgeted. A mother knows. And right then, holding that business card, I knew. If I lost whatever was in that box, I'd lose everything. The house, my security, my dignity. In a town like Elmwood, being poor isn't just about money. It's about becoming invisible, pitied. The church ladies whispering behind their hands about poor Dory, while they organize charity baskets you're too proud to accept. But worse than poverty, scandal. If whatever Harlan hid involved something shameful, something that would drag the Whittaker name through Elmwood's gossip mill, Bram would cut ties. I knew my son well enough to know that. He'd choose his reputation over his mother. He'd choose Leora over me. Sunday service that week felt like walking through a minefield. I sat in my usual pew, 3rd row from the front, right side, the spot where Harlan and I had sat for decades. Except now it was just me, and the empty space beside me felt like a canyon. The church ladies were already whispering. Oh, they tried to be subtle, leaning close to each other during the offertory, hands cupped over mouths. But I've lived in this town 68 years. I know how to read a whisper. Heard Harlan had some business troubles before he passed. Poor Dory. Hope she's got something saved. They say the pension fund might not be what everyone thought. My cheeks burned. I stared straight ahead at the altar, gripping my purse so tight my knuckles went white. The shame of it. Being discussed like I was already destitute. Like I was already a charity case. After service, I went straight home to prepare Sunday dinner. Bram and Leora would be there at 2:00, same as always. Pot roast in the oven, green beans with bacon, mashed potatoes with real butter. Not that margarine nonsense Leora always tried to push on me, talking about cholesterol. I set the dining room table with my good china, the set my mother gave me when I got married. white with tiny blue flowers around the rim. I must have set that table 1,000 times over the years, but that day, my hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped a plate. They arrived at 2:15. Bram used to be punctual. Learned that from Harlan. But lately he'd been showing up late to things. Small things. 15 minutes here, 20 there. The kind of lateness that says, I have more important things to deal with than you. Lily and Jake tumbled through the door first. Lily 16 and too cool for grandma hugs anymore, though she still let me kiss her cheek. Jake, 12, all gangly limbs and video game chatter. I ushered them to the living room, turned on the TV, sent them off with cookies. I needed them away from the adults. That should have been my first real warning sign. I was already preparing for a conversation the children shouldn't hear. Bram came in next, barely meeting my eyes. A quick hug, perfunctory. The kind you give someone you're obligated to love, but don't particularly want to see. His hair was styled different, slicked back with some kind of gel that made him look like a used car salesman instead of my boy who used to collect tadpoles in mason jars. Then Leora swept in, all designer perfume and fake concern. And that's when I saw it. On her wrist, a new Rolex, rose gold, diamonds on the bezel, the kind of watch that costs $15,000 if it costs a penny. I know because I'd seen the same one in a magazine at the dentist's office and nearly choked on my own spit at the price tag. Where did that money come from? We sat down to eat. I served the pot roast, passed the potatoes, tried to keep my voice steady as we made small talk about the weather, about Jake's baseball team, about absolutely nothing that mattered. And then Leora put down her fork and smiled at me. That smile didn't reach her eyes. Dory, sweetheart, she said, voice dripping with false sweetness. We need to discuss Harlan's financial situation. It's complicated. Bram still wouldn't look at me. He pushed green beans around his plate like a child avoiding vegetables. Dad made some investments that didn't pan out. He mumbled, We're trying to protect you from the details, Mum. It's business stuff. You wouldn't understand. Something hot and sharp twisted in my chest. Wouldn't understand. I'd scrubbed hospital floors on double shifts to put him through trade school when Harlan's mill went through layoffs. I'd clipped coupons and stretched every dollar until it screamed. I'd made miracles happen with a $5 grocery budget and prayer. And now he was telling me I wouldn't understand business stuff. I want to see the documents, I said. My voice came out harder than I intended. Every account statement, every investment, everything. Leora's eyes darted toward Bram. It was fast, just a flicker, but I caught it. The same look a fox gets when it realizes the trap is closer than it thought. Mum, you need to trust us, Bram said. Family first, remember? That's what Dad always said. Family first. He was using Harlan's words, throwing them at me like weapons. I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out the brass key, set it on the table between the serving dishes. It landed with a soft click, spinning slightly on the polished wood. Then help me understand, I said quietly. What's this for? The reaction was instantaneous. Leora knocked over her wine glass. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood, soaking into the lace edges. She scrambled for her napkin, dabbing at the stain, but her hands were shaking. Bram went pale. Where did you find that? Harlan's Bible, I said, watching them both carefully. It fell out when I opened it. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and apparently my husband created secrets. Mum, it's nothing, Bram started, but I wasn't done. I leaned forward, and I lied. I lied like my life depended on it, because maybe it did. Harlan told me about it before he died, said if anything happened to him, I should use it. I watched their faces, watched Bram and Leora exchange a look. Pure panic. Leora recovered first. She always was quick on her feet. Laughed, high and brittle. Oh, that old thing. Just some paperwork. Nothing important, really. But her hands were still shaking, and I noticed, really noticed for the first time, how expensive everything she wore was. Not just the Rolex, designer shoes, a handbag that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Where was all this money coming from? They left 20 minutes later, making weak excuses about Jake's homework and an early morning meeting. I watched from the front window as they argued in the driveway. Couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Leora was gesturing wildly, jabbing her finger toward the house. Toward me. Bram paced, running his hands through his gelled hair until it stood up in spikes. They were scared. Good. I was about to turn away from the window when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Nothing. Just breathing. Then a woman's voice. Muffled, like she was covering the mouthpiece with cloth. Stop asking questions. You'll regret this, old woman. Click. Deadline. My hand trembled as I lowered the phone. For a moment, just a moment, fear washed over me. Cold and sharp. But then something else rose up to meet it. Something I hadn't felt in years. Rage. Pure, righteous, grandmother rage. They thought they could scare me? Make me back down with a threatening phone call? They'd just made their first mistake, because whatever they were hiding, whatever that key unlocked, it was bad enough to threaten me over, and I was going to find out what it was. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't fear keeping me awake. It was determination. I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad, one of those old spiral-bound ones from the drugstore, and I started documenting everything. Every detail, every suspicion. Bram's nervous behavior at dinner. Couldn't meet my eyes. Leora's expensive watch. Where did money come from? Threatening phone call. Female voice. Disguised. Their panic when I showed them the key. I kept writing until my hand cramped. And as I wrote, I remembered something. A small thing. But it nagged at me. When Bram was 7, he broke Mrs. Patterson's front window playing baseball in the street. Came home crying, swearing up and down it wasn't him. But I knew. I knew by the way his hands fidgeted, pulling at his shirt hem, unable to stay still. At dinner tonight, when he lied about those documents being nothing important, his hands did the exact same thing. My boy was lying then. He was lying now. But this time, the stakes weren't a broken window and a $5 replacement. This was my entire life. I closed the notebook and looked at the brass key, still sitting on the kitchen table where I'd left it. Monday morning, I'd go to First National Bank. I'd use that key, and I'd find out what my husband, and apparently my son, had been hiding from me. Whatever it was, I could handle it. I'd handled 42 years of marriage, raising a difficult child, working double shifts, penny pinching through recessions. I could handle the truth, even if it destroyed me. Monday morning came too slow and too fast all at once. I barely slept. When dawn finally broke, I was already dressed. My Sunday clothes, because you don't face the truth in sweatpants. Navy blue dress, sensible shoes, the pearl earrings Harlan gave me for our 20th anniversary. Armor, I suppose. The kind a grandmother wears when she's about to go to war. First National Bank sits in the middle of Main Street, right between the hardware store and the old pharmacy with the soda fountain that nobody uses anymore. I've been banking there for 40 years. The same teller who processed our first mortgage still works the counter on Mondays. Betty Thornton, 3 years younger than me, with hair dyed an unnatural shade of auburn. She looked up when I walked in, and her face softened with sympathy. "Mrs. Whittaker," she said, coming around the counter to squeeze my hand. "I'm so sorry about Harlan. He was a good man. Was he?" I wanted to ask, but instead I smiled, nodded, accepted her condolences like I'd accepted hundreds of others. "I need to access my husband's safety deposit box," I said. Her expression shifted. Something flickered in her eyes. Was it surprise? Concern? "Of course," she said. "Let me get the records. You have the key?" I pulled it from my purse, held it up. The brass caught the fluorescent lights, glinting. Betty's face went still. Just for a second. Then she recovered, smiled professionally. "Follow me, Mrs. Whittaker." As she led me toward the vault, she said something that made my blood run cold. We've been expecting you. Though Mr. Whitaker always said you might never come. I stopped walking. What did he mean by that? She glanced back at me, and there was pity in her eyes. Real pity, not the performative kind people had been giving me since the funeral. I don't know, Ma'am. He just said, if you ever came asking, to be gentle with you. The vault was everything you'd expect. Cold, sterile, smelling like metal and old secrets. Betty pulled box 847 from its slot in the wall, heavier than I expected, and set it on the table in the small private room. Take all the time you need, she said softly. Then she left, closing the door behind her. I stood there for a long moment, just staring at the box. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the table, trying to steady myself. Please, God, I whispered. Let it be bonds. Let it be something innocent. Let it be anything but what I'm afraid it is. I slid the key into the lock. Click. The sound echoed in my chest like a gunshot. I opened the lid. No bonds, no love letters, no innocent explanation. Just papers, stacks of them. Ledgers, printouts, sticky notes in Harlan's cramped handwriting. The kind of documentation that tells a story nobody wants to read. The first page made my stomach drop. LW, offshore account, Cayman Islands, 2009, $47,000 transferred LW Leora Whitaker. My hands started to shake so badly I had to set the paper down. I kept reading, couldn't stop myself. It was like watching a car accident in slow motion. 2009, $47,000 to LW Antique Ventures LLC. 2011, $23,000. Inventory investment. 2014, $31,000. Expansion costs. 2017, $38,000. New supplier. Total, $139,000, funneled to Leora over 15 years, $139,000, and stuck to the ledger, a yellow sticky note in Harlan's handwriting. Knockoff antiques sold as genuine. Leora sources cheap replicas from overseas, marks up 400%. Customers think they're buying Victorian heirlooms. Tax evasion. Offshore accounts. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. Fraud. My daughter-in-law was running a fraud operation, and my husband, my honest, psalm-quoting, deacon at the church husband, had funded it. There were more notes. God help me, there were so many notes. 2009, Leora convinced me this was legitimate import business, gave her my bonus check. Dory's been working double shifts at the hospital. I can't tell her I gave away the money she thinks we lost to bad investments. That year, I remembered that year. The recession hit, and Harlan came home one night in March, face grey, and said his bonus didn't come through, said the mill was cutting back. We'd been counting on that bonus, $5,000 to replace the roof. The shingles were curling, leaking every time it rained. I took on extra shifts, night shifts, because they paid more. I'd come home at 7 in the morning, sleep 4 hours, wake up and make dinner, like everything was fine, all while Harlan was giving our money to Leora. 2012. Found out merchandise is fake. Confronted Leora. She cried, said Bram vouches for her business model, said I'd destroy the family if I reported it. Bram begged me to keep quiet, said it would ruin their marriage. 2015. I'm in too deep. If this comes out, I lose my deacon position, our reputation, everything we built in Elmwood. Dory can never know. I sat in that cold vault room, papers spread around me like evidence at a crime scene, and I started to cry. Not pretty crying, the ugly kind, the kind where you can't breathe and your whole body shakes, and you make sounds you didn't know you were capable of making. My rock-steady husband, my partner for 42 years, complicit in fraud, lying to me, letting me work myself to exhaustion while he funneled our money into a criminal enterprise, all while preaching honesty from the pulpit every Sunday. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for my tears to dry. Long enough for something harder to take root in my chest. Anger. I wiped my face with a tissue from my purse, put my reading glasses back on, and kept reading, because I needed to know everything. Every lie. Every betrayal. All of it. And that's when I found the second folder. This one was marked B.W. Bram Whitaker. My hands were steadier now. Anger does that. Burns away fear. Leaves you with clarity. I opened the folder. First page. Whitaker Home Solutions LLC. Customer deposits. A list of names. Elmwood residents. People I knew. Henderson, M. $8,000. Deck construction. Kowalski, R. $12,000. Roof repair. Patel, S. and J. $6,500. Porch addition. Davis, E. $5,000. Shed construction. Lawson, P. $9,000. Bathroom remodel. 19 names total. Total deposits, $147,000. And next to the list, in Harlan's handwriting, Bram's construction business. Work never completed. Customers asking for refunds. He keeps stalling. This is fraud. I confronted him. He said he borrowed the money for other projects, promises to finish the work. But it's been over a year for some of these people. I don't think he ever plans to finish. I stared at that list. Mrs. Henderson. Sweet Mrs. Henderson, who brought me a tuna casserole the day after Harlan's funeral, who could barely walk because of her arthritis, who needed that deck because her back steps were crumbling and she couldn't safely access her garden anymore. Bram took $8,000 from her and never built her deck. Mr. Kowalski, the man who ploughed my driveway every winter without being asked, who lost his wife to cancer 3 years ago and lives alone in that big house on Maple Street with a roof that leaks every spring. Bram took $12,000 from him and never fixed his roof. Earl Davis, Harlan's best friend from the mill, the man who sat in the front pew at the funeral and cried like he'd lost a brother. Bram took $5,000 from him and never built his shed. These weren't just names on a list. These were people. My people. Elmwood people. Neighbours and friends and fellow church members who trusted the Whitaker name because of Harlan's reputation. And my son, my only child, the boy I carried for 9 months and raised and sacrificed everything for, had looked them in the eye, shaken their hands, and stolen from them. I took photos of everything. Every page, every ledger, every note. My phone camera clicked over and over in that silent vault room. Then I asked Betty to photocopy everything. She did, without asking questions, though her eyes were red when she handed me the copies. She knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew whatever was in that box was bad. "Mrs. Whitaker?" she said quietly as I gathered the papers. "Are you going to be okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her. Betty Thornton, who'd processed my mortgage and my car loans and my Christmas Club savings for 40 years. Who knew exactly how much money I had? Who'd probably fielded calls from Bram asking about my accounts. "I will be," I said. And I meant it. I walked out of First National Bank at 10:47 a.m. The sun was shining. Main Street was busy with Monday morning traffic. Everything looked exactly the same as it had an hour before. But I was different. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my purse with photocopies of my family's crimes tucked inside. And I whispered to myself, 2 thieves. One my daughter-in-law, one my son, both using Harlan's guilt to rob me blind. A woman passing by looked at me strangely. I must have seemed like a crazy old lady talking to herself on Main Street. Let her think it. Let them all think whatever they wanted, because they didn't know what I knew now. They didn't know what I was capable of. Harlan tried to protect them, tried to cover their crimes. Let his guilt and his fear of scandal silence him. But I wasn't Harlan. And I wasn't scared anymore. A grandmother's rage is patient, steady, built on decades of quiet endurance and sacrifice. And mine had just been unleashed. I called her from the bank parking lot, sat in my old Honda with the photocopies spread across the passenger seat, and dialed Leora's number before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Dory?" Surprise in her voice. We weren't the kind of in-laws who called each other just to chat. "Meet me at Elmwood Diner," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Cold, flat. 1 hour. Just us girls. Silence on the other end. I could practically hear her calculating, trying to figure out what this meant. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "You tell me, dear." I found some interesting paperwork. More silence. Then, I'll be there. I arrived early, took my favorite booth, red vinyl, slightly cracked, next to the window where you can see the whole street. Patty, the waitress who'd been working at the diner since before I moved to Elmwood, brought me coffee without asking. "You look like you're gearing up for battle, hun," she said, setting down the mug. "That's exactly what this is," I told her. She squeezed my shoulder and left me alone. I spread the folder on the table. Not all of it, just enough. The ledger pages showing Leora's offshore accounts. The sticky notes in Harlan's handwriting. Evidence of 15 years of fraud. My hands weren't shaking anymore. That surprised me. I thought they would be. But anger has a way of steadying you, of turning fear into focus. Leora walked in at exactly noon. She was dressed like she was going to a country club. Cream-coloured slacks, silk blouse, that damn Rolex catching the diner's fluorescent lights. She slid into the booth across from me, arranged her designer handbag on the seat beside her, and smiled. That smile didn't reach her eyes. "Dory," she said, "what's this about?" I slid the ledger copies across the Formica table. Didn't say a word. Just pushed them across until they sat between us like an accusation. Leora's eyes flicked down. I watched her face as she read. Watched the colour drain from her cheeks. Watched her perfectly manicured fingers tighten on the edge of the paper. "Explain these," I said quietly. "Every single dollar." She looked up at me, and for just a second, her mask slipped. I saw panic there, raw and real. Then she recovered, laughed, high and brittle, like glass breaking. "Dory, sweetheart, where did you get these? This is just business paperwork. Harlan was helping me with startup costs." Startup costs. My voice was still quiet, but something sharp had crept into it. "You've been running this scam for 15 years. $139,000 from my family's money." "It's not a scam." Her voice rose, drawing looks from the couple two booths over. She lowered it, leaned forward. "I run a legitimate import business. Harlan believed in me. Harlan believed in scripture." I cut her off. "In honesty, in integrity. You poisoned him with your schemes and your lies and your fake antiques." Her jaw tightened. The sweet, concerned daughter-in-law routine was cracking. "Sometimes sourcing is complicated," she tried. "The antique market is very—" "I called the Cayman Bank this morning," I said. It was a lie. I hadn't. But I'd learned something in the past 24 hours. Sometimes you have to lie to catch a liar. They were very helpful once I explained I was investigating fraud. "Your legitimate business has 0 import licenses, no business registration, nothing. You're selling knockoffs as genuine Victorian pieces. That's fraud. That's tax evasion." Her face went very still. "You can't prove anything," she said finally. The mask was completely gone now. Her voice was ice. "Harlan's dead. It's your word against mine." I pulled out my phone, turned it around so she could see the screen. Photos, dozens of them. Every page from the safety deposit box. "Bank records," I said. "His notes. Offshore account numbers. And I have a lawyer reviewing it all right now." That was only half a lie. I hadn't called a lawyer yet, but I would. Leora's eyes narrowed. She was calculating again. I could see it, trying to figure out how much trouble she was in, how much I actually knew. "If you expose this," she said slowly, "you'll drag Harlan's name through the mud, the church, your reputation. Everyone in Elmwood will know your husband enabled my schemes, as you call them. Is that really what you want? To destroy his memory? Better the truth than living a lie," I said. She leaned back, crossed her arms. That Rolex glinted. "And what about Bram? Your precious son? If I go down, he goes down with me." My heart stuttered. "What does that mean?" A smile played at the corner of her mouth, cruel, satisfied. "Ask him about his customer deposits. Ask him why Mrs. Henderson is still waiting for her deck. Ask him where all that construction money went." The diner seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table. "You knew." I whispered. You knew about his construction business. The people he stole from knew about it. Leora laughed. A real laugh this time, ugly and sharp. I helped design it. Who do you think taught him how to set up an LLC? How to move money offshore so nobody could track it? Where do you think your precious boy learned to be a businessman, Dory? The truth hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just parallel crimes. It was connected. A web. Leora's fraud funded Bram's Ponzi scheme. They were partners, had been all along. We're a team, Leora said, confirming my worst fear. Always have been. Harlan tried to stop us, but he loved Bram too much to turn us in. And that stress, she shrugged. Well, weak hearts run in families, don't they? That stress killed him, I said. My voice was shaking now. She shrugged again. He had a weak heart. Not my fault. I stood up. Had to get away from her before I did something I'd regret. My hands were clenched into fists, and I realized with distant surprise that I wanted to hit her. 68 years old, never raised my hand to anyone in my life, and I wanted to slap that smirk off her face. What you want, I said, gathering the papers, is justice. For Harlan. For Mrs. Henderson. For everyone you've stolen from. Leora stood too, grabbed her handbag, leaned across the table, voice low and venomous. If you report this, you lose everything. Your son goes to prison. Your grandkids grow up with a criminal father. The Whitaker name becomes a joke in this town. Every time you go to church, every time you walk down Main Street, people will whisper, "There's Dory Whitaker. Her husband enabled fraud. Her son's a thief. Is that what you want?" I met her eyes. What I want is justice. I walked toward the door, legs shaking but head high. Behind me, Leora called out, "You'll regret this, old woman." The whole diner heard it. The couple 2 booths over. The truck driver at the counter. Patty behind the register. Let them hear. Let them all hear. I pushed through the door into the bright afternoon sun, and there was Patty, hurrying after me, drying her hands on her apron. "Dory," she said quietly. "Hon, I shouldn't say this, but I've been seeing Bram here, meeting with elderly folks, selling them construction contracts." My stomach dropped further. What kind of contracts? Deck building, home repairs. They pay up front, and she looked uncomfortable. My neighbour, Mrs. Henderson, told me she paid him $8,000 for a deck last year. Never got built. She's too embarrassed to report it. Says she doesn't want to cause trouble for your family. I closed my eyes. Felt the world spinning. How many others? I whispered. At least a dozen people I know personally. 12. Maybe more. Not just Mrs. Henderson. Not just Earl and Mr. Kowalski. A dozen elderly residents of Elmwood. My neighbours. My community. All of them too embarrassed to report being scammed by a Whitaker. I opened my eyes. Looked at Patty. "Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do?" I thought about that brass key. About Harlan's notes in the safety deposit box. About the stress that killed him. About 19 names on a list and $147,000 stolen from people who could barely afford it. "I'm going to make this right," I said, "even if it costs me everything." You know what's worse than discovering your family has committed crimes? Discovering who they committed those crimes against. After leaving the diner, I sat in my car for a long time, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide what to do next. I could go home. Pretend I didn't know. Let Bram and Leora get away with it. Preserve what was left of our family. That's what Harlan did. Stayed silent. Let guilt eat him alive until his heart gave out. But I kept thinking about what Patty said. Mrs. Henderson. $8,000. No deck. I started the car. Mrs. Henderson lives 3 blocks from St. Agnes Church, in a little white bungalow with flower boxes that used to overflow with petunias every summer. Used to. This year, they were empty, except for weeds. I knocked on her door. Heard the shuffle of her walker inside. It took her a full minute to answer. Arthritis makes everything harder. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, her face crumpled like I'd hit her. "Oh, Dory," she said. I didn't want to cause trouble. You're not causing anything, Margaret, I said gently. May I come in? We sat in her living room, doilies on every surface, photos of grandchildren who lived too far away to visit often. She made tea with shaking hands, and I noticed how hard it was for her to carry the cups. The arthritis was worse than I'd realized. Tell me about the deck, I said. She started crying before she even began talking. It was last spring, she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Bram came by after church. Said he noticed my back steps were rotting. They were. I can barely get out to my garden anymore. And you know how I love my tomatoes. I did know. Margaret Henderson's tomatoes won the county fair 3 years running. He quoted me $8,000 for a wraparound deck. Said it would have a ramp for my walker, railings, everything I needed. He showed me pictures on his phone of other decks he'd built. They were beautiful. My chest tightened. Those pictures were probably stolen from the internet, or from contractors who actually did the work. I paid him half up front, she continued. $4,000. Then 2 weeks later, he said the lumber company needed full payment before they'd deliver. So I gave him the rest. And then he started the work, tore out my old steps, put in some framing. Then he just stopped coming. Every time I called, he had an excuse. Crew got sick. Lumber delayed. Supply chain issues. She looked at me with such sadness. It's been 18 months, Dory. I can't safely get to my backyard. I have to ask neighbours to bring in my garbage cans because I can't navigate the concrete blocks he left as temporary steps. $8,000. Her life savings, probably. And she couldn't even access her own backyard. Why didn't you report it? I asked, though I already knew. Because of Harlan, she said simply. Everyone respected him so much. I thought, if I made trouble for Bram, it would hurt your family, hurt your memory of Harlan. And after he died, I couldn't. She trailed off, crying harder. I reached across and took her gnarled, arthritic hands in mine. Margaret, do you know anyone else he did this to? She pulled out a notebook, a spiral-bound thing from the drugstore, pages filled with her shaky handwriting. I started keeping track, she said, after I realized I wasn't the only one. She'd made a list. Names, amounts, projects promised and never delivered. Mr. Kowalski, $12,000, roof repair never started. The Patels, $6,500, porch addition stalled after demolition. Earl Davis, $5,000, shed, never even broke ground. Widow Lawson, $9,000, bathroom remodel for her accessibility needs, 19 names total. Some I knew well, some just by sight. All of them elderly, all of them trusting, all of them stolen from. $147,000. $147,000 taken from people who could least afford to lose it. We started a support group, Margaret said quietly, meeting at the library on Wednesdays. None of us wanted to be the one to report him. We kept hoping he'd make it right. And after Harlan passed, she shook her head. I looked at that notebook, at the careful documentation of my son's crimes, and something inside me hardened into resolve. Can you get everyone together? I asked. All 19 of you? When? Today. Now. This can't wait anymore. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, my living room was full of elderly Elmwood residents. Some I'd known for decades. Some I'd only seen at church. All of them with the same story. Bram promised work, took their money, and disappeared. Earl Davis was there, Harlan's best friend from the mill. He looked like he'd aged 10 years since the funeral. I didn't tell you at Harlan's service, he said, voice rough. Didn't seem right. But Dory, that boy of yours took $5,000 from me for a storage shed. I'd been saving that money for 3 years, was going to use it for a fishing trip with my grandson. Instead, I got a hole in my backyard and excuses. Widow Lawson sat in my good chair, the one by the window. She was 83, barely 5 feet tall, used a cane to walk. I saved for 5 years for that bathroom, she said. I have arthritis in my knees. I can't step over the edge of my bathtub anymore. I needed a walk-in shower. Something safe. Her voice broke. He took $9,000, ripped out my bathtub. Never finished. Now I have to sponge bathe at the sink like I'm back in the Depression. I can't even bathe with dignity. One by one, they told their stories, each one worse than the last. Mr. Kowalski, whose roof leaked so badly he had to put buckets in his bedroom when it rained. The Patels, whose front porch was a half-demolished hazard that code enforcement threatened to fine them for. Young Mrs. Chen, only 62, which made her practically a kid in this crowd, who'd paid for a wheelchair ramp for her mother and got nothing but empty promises. Every single one of them too embarrassed to report it, too worried about hurting the Whittaker name, too ashamed that they'd been fooled. And sitting there, listening to them, I realized something that made my blood run cold. These weren't just names on a ledger. These were my people, my community, neighbors who'd brought casseroles when Harlan died, who'd shoveled my driveway in winter, who'd sat in the pew behind me at church for 30 years. And my son had looked them in the eye, shaken their hands, used his father's reputation as a weapon, and robbed them. Earl's daughter, Michelle, was the last to arrive. She's a paralegal in Dayton, sharp as a tack, reminded me of myself 40 years ago. She looked at the room full of elderly victims, looked at the documentation Margaret Henderson had compiled, and said what we were all thinking. This is elder financial abuse. It's criminal fraud. He targeted vulnerable people deliberately. What can we do? I asked. File a police report. Every single one of you. And Dory? She looked at me. You need a lawyer. A good one. I called Gerald Finch that night. He's an old family friend. Went to school with Harlan, handled our will 15 years ago. Semi-retired now, but still sharp. He came over the next morning, spread everything out on my dining room table. The bank documents, the ledgers, the victim statements, Margaret's careful notebook. His face got darker with every page he turned. Dory, he said finally, this is serious. Multiple counts of fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse. Bram could face significant prison time. And if I do nothing? He looked at me over his reading glasses. These people lose their money. Your son keeps operating. More victims. And you lose everything when he forges your name on something else. Because men like this don't stop. They escalate. What about restitution for the victims? Gerald shook his head. Civil suits could recover some funds, but realistically, most of this money is gone, spent. Bram's LLC is probably bankrupt. Even if you win judgments, you can't squeeze blood from a stone. The weight of it settled on my shoulders. These 19 people would probably never see their money again. Mrs. Henderson would never get her deck. Widow Lawson would keep sponge bathing at her sink. Mr. Kowalski's bedroom would keep flooding every time it rained. Unless, what if I paid them back? I said. From my nest egg, the 200,000. Gerald stared at me. Dory, that's not your responsibility. It's my son, my family name. How is it not my responsibility? You'd have almost nothing left. I'd have my integrity. We sat in silence for a moment. There's something else, Gerald said. He pulled out a document. I did a title search on your house, just to make sure everything was in order. And Dory, there's a problem. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? A quit-claim deed was filed 6 months ago, February 14th. Harlan signed over 50% ownership of this house to Bram. The room tilted. Harlan wouldn't do that without telling me. Gerald pointed to the notary stamp. Look at where it was notarized. Dayton. At a strip mall notary public. He looked at me. Dory, I think someone forged your husband's signature. I sat at my dining room table, staring at that quitclaim deed, trying to make sense of it. February 14th, Valentine's Day. 6 months ago. 3 months before Harlan died. He'd signed over half our house, the house we'd lived in for 42 years, where I raised our son, where every room held a memory, and never said a word to me. Except he hadn't. Not really. Someone had forged his signature. Bram. My son had forged his own father's name to steal our home. We need to get this authenticated, Gerald said. I know a handwriting expert in Columbus. But Dory, if this is forged, we're talking about a felony, on top of everything else. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. The scope of Bram's crimes kept expanding, like ripples in water, each one worse than the last. Gerald gathered his papers. Think about what you want to do. This is your son, your only child. Once you report this, there's no going back. After he left, I sat alone in the silent house. Half my home. Bram had tried to steal half my home. If Harlan hadn't died, would it have worked? Would I have woken up one day to find Bram evicting me from my own house, selling it out from under me? I couldn't stay inside. The walls felt like they were closing in. I walked out to check the mailbox. Something to do with my hands, my body. Some way to feel normal for 5 seconds. That's when I saw it. An envelope. No postage. No return address. Just my name written in block letters, Eudora Whittaker, taped to the mailbox. My hands shook as I pulled it down. Inside was a USB drive and a typed note on plain white paper. You need to see the full truth. Harlan tried to protect you. Now I will. MD. MD. I stood there on my front lawn, holding this envelope from a stranger, and I realized I had no idea who that could be. I didn't trust myself to open the USB alone, didn't trust that it wasn't some kind of virus or trap. Leora and Bram were clearly capable of anything, so I called Michelle, Earl's daughter, the paralegal. She came over that evening with her laptop, ran security checks, made sure it was safe. Okay, she said. It's clean. Just files, documents, audio recordings, emails. Whoever sent this, they have access to serious information. She clicked the first folder. Files loaded. Dozens of them. Bank statements, email printouts, and audio files. Michelle clicked the first one. Bram, Leora, OC tone 23 MP3. There was a moment of static, then voices, muffled, like someone had recorded them through a wall or door. But unmistakably, Bram and Leora. Need more capital. The offshore accounts are getting attention from the IRS. Leora's voice, sharp, impatient. I'm tapped out. The seniors are getting suspicious. Mrs. Henderson called again, asking about her deck. Bram. He sounded tired. Then get creative. What about your mum's inheritance? The Aunt Faye money? My blood ran cold. That's in a trust. I'd have to forge Mum's signature to access it. So, forge it. You've done it before. A pause. Long enough that I thought the recording had cut out. Then Bram's voice. Quieter. I'll need Dad's help accessing the documents. I had to pause the recording. Had to breathe. Michelle looked at me with such pity. Mrs. Whittaker. Keep going, I said. I need to hear all of it. There were more recordings. So many more. October 2023. Bram approaching Harlan, asking for $80,000 for business expansion. November 2023. Harlan discovering the forged signature on my Aunt Faye inheritance transfer. His voice on the recording was anguished, furious. You stole from your own mother. How could you? I taught you better than this. You taught me that family comes first. Bram shot back. You taught me that we protect each other. Protection doesn't mean enabling theft. December 2023. Harlan threatening to tell me everything. I'm telling your mother after Easter. This has to stop, Bram. These people you've stolen from, they're our neighbors, our friends. If you tell her, you destroy this family. The grandkids will hate us. Your reputation, my reputation is already destroyed. I've been covering for you for years. Then you'll lose your son, your grandchildren, everything. Is that what you want, Dad? To die alone? January 2024. More arguments. Harlan saying he was done, he couldn't keep lying, his conscience wouldn't let him. And then, February. The quitclaim deed. There was an email in the files, from Bram to someone named J. Patterson, probably the notary. Need a favor. Rush notarization on this deed transfer. My dad can't come in person. Health issues. I'll bring his signature samples for verification. Cash payment. Discreet. The reply, $500. No paper trail. Bram had paid someone to notarize a forged deed. But the worst, the absolute worst, was the final recording, dated April 2024, 1 month before Harlan died. Leora and Bram arguing again. This time, the audio was clearer, like whoever recorded it was in the same room. Your dad is a problem. If he tells Dory, we lose everything. The business, the house, all of it. I can't stop him anymore. He won't listen to me. A pause. Then Leora's voice, cold and calculating. Then maybe he needs to have an accident. What? Leora, you can't be serious. I'm serious about not going to prison. Heart problems run in families, don't they? The man's 70, high blood pressure. If we just push the right buttons, stress him out enough, nature takes its course. You're talking about killing my father. I'm talking about letting nature handle a problem. Big difference. Another long pause. I could hear Bram breathing on the recording. Then, finally, we don't do anything. We just, if stress gets to him, if his heart can't handle it, we don't interfere. Exactly. We do nothing. The recording ended. I sat there, staring at Michelle's laptop screen, and I couldn't breathe. They didn't poison him, didn't push him down the stairs, didn't do anything that would show up on an autopsy report. They just stressed him, pushed him, threatened him, made his life so unbearable that his heart gave out, and when it did, they celebrated their freedom. Mrs. Whittaker? Michelle's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you okay? No, I whispered. No, I'm not. But I would be, because now I knew everything. Michelle's phone rang. She answered, listened, then held it out to me. It's for you. Says his name is Marcus Delacroix. Marcus, MD. I took the phone with shaking hands. Mrs. Whittaker, a man's voice said. Younger, maybe 40s. I'm Leora's brother. You sent the USB. I did. I worked in her business 5 years ago. Saw the fraud firsthand. When I confronted her, she threatened to destroy my career if I talked. So I left. Moved to Denver. Tried to forget about it. Why come forward now? His voice cracked. Because when I heard Harlan died, I knew. I knew what they'd done. I couldn't prove murder, but I could prove fraud. I hacked Leora's cloud storage 6 months ago. Got everything. Every email, every recording. I've been waiting for the right moment. Why me? Why not go to the police yourself? Because it's your family, your choice, your justice. He paused. Mrs. Whittaker, there's one more folder on that USB. You need to see it before you decide what to do. What folder? It's labeled Harlan's safety net. He knew they might kill him, and he prepared for it. After Marcus hung up, I sat staring at Michelle's laptop for a long time. Harlan's safety net. My husband, who'd enabled our son's crimes for years, who'd covered and lied and let guilt eat him alive, had also, apparently, prepared for his own death. Do you want me to open it? Michelle asked gently. I nodded. Couldn't speak. She clicked the folder. Files appeared. Documents. A video file dated May 15th, 2024, 2 weeks before Harlan died. Start with the documents, I said. I wasn't ready to see his face yet, to hear his voice. Michelle opened the first file. A letter, written in Harlan's cramped handwriting, then scanned. For Eudora, if I don't survive this. My eyes filled with tears before I even started reading. My dearest Dory, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've discovered my shame. I failed you. I enabled our son's criminal behavior because I was too proud to admit I raised a thief, too cowardly to face the scandal. I covered for Bram because I loved him, but love without accountability isn't love at all. It's cowardice. You need to know the truth about everything. Bram forged your signature on the Aunt Faye inheritance transfer. $80,000 stolen directly from you. I found out in November and confronted him. He begged me not to tell you. Said it would destroy the family. He forged my signature on a quitclaim deed to our house. Tried to steal half of everything we built together. I discovered this in February. I was planning to reverse it legally, but I'm afraid of what they might do to silence me. Leora orchestrated everything. Her fraud funded his Ponzi scheme. They're partners in crime, and I've been their accomplice by staying silent. I was going to tell you after Easter. Had it all planned, rehearsed the words 100 times, but I'm terrified, Dory. Terrified of what they're capable of. Leora talks about problems solving themselves. Bram makes veiled comments about my health. I think they're waiting for me to die, so I'm writing this as insurance, as my confession, as my final act of courage. The letter went on, but I had to stop, had to wipe my eyes. Michelle handed me a tissue without saying anything. After a moment, I kept reading. I've done one thing right. I've secured your future. In March, I created a trust, the Whitaker Protection Trust. I transferred our house into it. Bram's forged quitclaim deed is worthless because the property was no longer in my name when he filed it. The house is yours, completely untouchable. I also took out a life insurance policy that Bram and Leora don't know about. $150,000. Beneficiary, you exclusively. The payout will go directly into the trust. I've designated the trust for a specific purpose: elder financial abuse prevention and victim restitution. I can't undo the harm Bram caused, but you can. Use this money to repay every person he stole from, every penny, Mrs. Henderson's deck, Mr. Kowalski's roof, all of it. And then, Dory, use our story. Create a foundation. Teach people how to spot predators, even when those predators are family. Show them that staying silent doesn't protect anyone. It just enables more harm. I'm attaching all the evidence I've gathered. Bank records, forged documents, expert analysis showing the signature discrepancies, a complete victim list. Everything the police will need for prosecution. I was a coward in life. Let me be brave in death. Turn this over to the authorities. Give our victims justice. And Dory, I'm so sorry. You deserved better than me. Better than the lies I told, the secrets I kept, the ways I failed you. But I hope, wherever I am now, I can finally earn some redemption by standing with you in this. You are the strongest person I've ever known. You always have been. I love you. I will always love you. Harlan. I couldn't read anymore, couldn't see through my tears. Michelle clicked open the trust documents. Everything Harlan said was true. The house was in trust, in my name only. The life insurance policy was real. $150,000, already paid out after his death, sitting in an account I didn't even know existed. Waiting for me, waiting for this moment. He protected you, Michelle said softly, even knowing it might cost him his life. He should have protected me sooner, I said. My voice was bitter. Years sooner. But he did it eventually. That has to count for something. Did it? I didn't know. Wasn't sure I'd ever know. Michelle opened the video file. Do you want to watch this? I nodded. Harlan's face filled the screen. He looked terrible. Gaunt, exhausted, older than his 70 years. This was May 15th. He'd die on May 28th, 13 days later. Dory, he said, and his voice cracked. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. He was sitting in his office, the one off our kitchen. I could see the edge of the bookshelf behind him, the window with the curtains I'd made 20 years ago. I don't have much time. I can feel my heart failing. The stress, the guilt, it's killing me. And they know it. They're waiting for it. He leaned closer to the camera. I've left you everything you need. The trust protects the house. The insurance gives you means to make restitution. The evidence will put them in prison. But the choice is yours. You can walk away. Keep the money. Stay silent like I did. No one would blame you. Or you can fight. Finish what I was too weak to start. Give those victims their justice. Show Bram that actions have consequences. He smiled. Sad, tired, resigned. I know which choice you'll make. You've always been stronger than me. Braver. Better. I love you, Dory. Forgive me for not being the husband you deserved, but watch what you're about to become. Watch yourself be the warrior I never was. The video ended. I sat in silence for a long time. Michelle finally spoke. What are you going to do? I thought about Harlan's letter, about the $150,000 waiting in trust, about 19 elderly victims sitting in my living room earlier, each one too ashamed to fight back, about Bram and Leora thinking they'd gotten away with it, about my husband dying of stress while they plotted their freedom. I'm going to finish what he started, I said. That night, I made calls. Gerald first. I have new evidence, major developments. We need to meet. Then Marcus. Thank you. You saved me. Now help me destroy them. Then Earl. Get everyone together again. Tomorrow. I have news. And finally, I pulled out my calendar, looked at the date. November 4th. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. November 25th. Bram and Leora always came to my house for Thanksgiving. Every single year, family tradition. This year would be different. This year, they'd sit at my table, eat my food, say grace with their lying mouths, and then I'd serve them justice instead of pie. I looked at Harlan's photo on the mantel, the one from our 30th anniversary, both of us smiling before everything fell apart. You were flawed, I said to the empty room. You were weak. You failed me for so long, but you loved me enough to fight in the end, to protect me, to give me the weapons I needed. I touched the frame gently. Now watch me fight for us both. Watch me finish this. Rest now, Harlan. Your conscience is clear. I picked up my notebook, started making plans. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to set the trap. 3 weeks until Thanksgiving. Until Justice Day. The next morning, my kitchen table looked like a war room. Gerald sat at the head, reading glasses perched on his nose, legal pads spread before him. Earl leaned against the counter, arms crossed, face grim. Michelle, Earl's daughter, had her laptop open taking notes. Marcus joined us by video call, his face filling my old iPad screen that Lily had set up for me last Christmas. And scattered around the remaining chairs were 3 of the victims, Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Kowalski, and Widow Lawson, representatives of the 19 who'd been stolen from. We have enough for criminal charges, Gerald said, tapping the stack of evidence. Multiple felonies. The forged signatures alone could get Bram 10 years. I don't want him arrested on the street, I said. Everyone looked at me. I want them to confess first, on record, with witnesses. Gerald frowned. Dory. Confrontations are risky. They could lawyer up immediately. They won't, I said. Not if they think they're safe. Not if they think I'm still the weak old mother who'll forgive anything. How do you propose we do this? Michelle asked. I looked around the table at these people. My allies, my army of elderly warriors, and the few young ones brave enough to help us. Thanksgiving? I said. They always come here for Thanksgiving. Every year since they got married. Bram wouldn't miss it. Leora wouldn't let him. She needs to keep up appearances. Earl straightened. You want to confront them at Thanksgiving dinner? I want to trap them at Thanksgiving dinner. I pulled out a notepad where I'd been sketching the plan since 3 a.m. We set up a hidden camera. Earl, you and the other victims hide in my back bedroom. Sheriff Bellamy waits down the street. I lay out the evidence during dinner, get them talking, get them to confess on camera. Then you all come out. Witnesses. Justice. Tom Bellamy will do it, Earl said. Tom had been sheriff of Elmwood for 20 years, went to school with Harlan. He's been wanting to nail white-collar criminals for years. This'll be his Super Bowl. Marcus spoke from the iPad screen. You'll need to push their buttons, make them feel cornered. Desperate people confess when they think confession is the only way out. And if they get violent? Gerald asked. I thought about Bram, my boy who used to cry at sad movies, who refused to go hunting with his father because he couldn't stand to hurt animals. Violence wasn't in his nature, but desperation makes people capable of things they never imagined. I'll be there, Earl said firmly. They won't touch her. That afternoon, I did the hardest thing. I called Bram. He answered on the 4th ring, suspicious. Mum? Honey, I said, and I made my voice soft, uncertain, defeated. I've been thinking about what you said, about the finances. Silence on the other end. I talked to a financial advisor. I lied. He explained how investments work, how sometimes they don't pan out. I think I overreacted. I could hear him breathing, deciding whether to believe me. Mum, are you okay? I'm tired, Bram. So tired. And it's almost Thanksgiving. I don't want to spend the holidays angry. I let my voice crack. Not hard, considering how I really felt. Can we just have one normal Thanksgiving? Like when Dad was alive? You, Leora, the kids? Mum. His voice softened. He wanted to believe me, wanted to think the problem was going away. Please, sweetheart. I miss my family. Okay, he said finally. We'll be there. 2:00. 2:00. I'll make your favorite. Turkey with apple sage stuffing. After we hung up, I heard a sound. Bram's voice in the background, muffled but audible. He'd thought he'd disconnected, but the line was still open. Is she really backing off? Leora's voice. Sounds like it. Maybe she's finally accepting reality. Leora laughed. Cold, sharp. Or maybe she's going senile. Either way, this works for us. Then the line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, that laugh echoing in my mind, going senile. They thought I was weak, broken, easy to manipulate. Good. The hardest conversation came next. I called Lily. Grandma? She answered immediately, concern in her voice. 16 years old, and already learning to read adult worry. Is everything okay? Sweetheart, I need to tell you something about your parents. Silence. You know, don't you? I said gently. Her voice was small. I found cash in Dad's office, stacks of it, and I heard them arguing about keeping people quiet. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it was wrong. Smart girl. So much sharper than her father. They've broken laws, Lily. Hurt people. Stolen money from elderly neighbours. On Thanksgiving, the truth is coming out. She started crying. Quiet, suppressed sobs. Are they going to jail? Yes. Good. The fierceness in her voice surprised me. I'm glad. What they're doing? It's not right. I've been so scared, Grandma. Scared that I'm like them. That I'll grow up to be a liar too. You won't, I said firmly. You know right from wrong. That's the difference. What about Jake and me? What happens to us? I'll take care of you both. Always. But on Thanksgiving, I need you to take Jake to Earl's house before everything happens. Can you do that? You don't want us to see them arrested. I don't want you to carry that image for the rest of your lives. She was quiet for a moment. Then, okay, Grandma, I trust you. The night before Thanksgiving, I couldn't sleep. Again. This was becoming a pattern. I sat in bed, pulled out our old photo albums, the kind we kept before everything went digital. Actual photographs in plastic sleeves, edges yellowed with time, baby Bram, purple and screaming, but perfect. I'd held him and promised to protect him, to raise him right. Bram at 7, missing his 2 front teeth, holding up a trophy from Little League. Bram at 12, sullen and angry, going through that phase where he hated everyone. Bram at 20, trade school graduation, Harlan's arm around his shoulders, Bram and Leora's wedding. She'd looked beautiful that day, and I'd been so happy my son found someone. Where did it go wrong? When did protecting him turn into enabling him? When did love become blindness? I closed the album. Tomorrow, I whispered to the dark room. I destroy my son's life. I send him to prison, take away his freedom, break apart his family. Any other mother would cover for him. Hide the evidence. Choose her child over justice. But I remembered Bram at age 8, stealing candy from the corner store. Harlan had said, boys make mistakes. Family forgives. I'd made Bram return that candy. Made him apologize to Mr. Chen behind the counter. Made him understand that actions have consequences. That was love. Real love. Teaching accountability. What Harlan did later, covering for adult crimes, enabling fraud, that wasn't love. That was cowardice, dressed up as loyalty. Tomorrow, I said again, I love Bram the right way. By holding him accountable. By saying, this far and no further. I put the album away and tried to sleep. Thanksgiving morning, I woke at 5. Couldn't sleep anyway. Might as well cook. I made everything from scratch. Turkey, apple sage stuffing, mashed potatoes with real butter, green beans with bacon, cranberry sauce from actual cranberries, pumpkin pie cooling on the counter, crust golden and perfect. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. I was preparing a feast for people who'd tried to starve me of dignity, security, home. But this was my Thanksgiving tradition. 42 years of cooking this meal. I wouldn't let them take that from me, too. At noon, Michelle arrived with the hidden camera. It was tiny, disguised as a decorative plant on the sideboard. She set it up, tested the angle. Perfect view of the whole dining table, she said. Audio's crystal clear. I'll be in my car down the street, recording everything to a backup drive. At 1 o'clock, the victims arrived. Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Kowalski, Widow Lawson, Earl, and 2 others. They filed into my back bedroom quietly, like soldiers taking position. Stay quiet no matter what you hear, I instructed. I'll text Earl when it's time to come out. Sheriff Bellamy called to confirm he was parked 3 houses down. Signal from Gerald when you need me, he said. I'll be there in 30 seconds. Gerald arrived last, took position in his car across the street. He'd document everything, call the sheriff at the right moment, make sure all the legal procedures were followed. Everything was ready. I stood in my dining room, smoothing down my Sunday dress, the navy blue one with the white collar. I'd set the table with my mother's china, the white plates with tiny blue flowers, the same dishes I'd used for every Thanksgiving since Harlan and I got married. I touched the edge of one plate. Today, I break the cycle, I whispered. Today, I choose truth over peace, justice over family loyalty. The doorbell rang. I walked to the mirror in the hallway, looked at my reflection, 68 years old. Grey hair pulled back in a neat bun, reading glasses on a chain around my neck, sensible shoes, pearl earrings. I looked like somebody's sweet grandmother, but inside, I was steel. 42 years of being the good wife, I said to my reflection, the forgiving mother, the woman who kept the peace at any cost. Today, I'm the woman who says no more. The doorbell rang again. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and went to open the door. Bram stood on my front porch, holding a bottle of wine, cheap wine, the kind you get at the drugstore, and wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom," he said, and kissed my cheek, the same obligatory kiss he'd been giving me for years. Performative, empty. Leora swept in behind him, all perfume and fake warmth. "Dory, something smells amazing." That Rolex caught the afternoon light, diamonds glinting. $15,000 on her wrist, while Mrs. Henderson couldn't afford to fix her deck. Lily came next, giving me a real hug, whispering against my ear, "I love you, Grandma. You're doing the right thing." Jake tumbled in last, 12 years old and oblivious, talking about the new video game he wanted for Christmas. Still innocent, still sweet. I wanted to keep him that way. We settled into the living room, the kids on the couch. Bram poured himself a drink from my liquor cabinet without asking. Leora perched on the edge of the armchair like a cat ready to bolt. They were nervous, trying to hide it, but I could see it. The way Bram's hands fidgeted, the way Leora's eyes kept scanning the room, looking for threats. "Dinner's almost ready," I said. "Why don't we sit down?" The dining room table looked beautiful. I'd outdone myself. Turkey golden and perfect, side dishes steaming, candles lit, my mother's china gleaming under the chandelier. A last supper, I thought, though they didn't know it yet. We took our seats. Same positions as always. Me at the head, Harlan's empty chair at the foot, Bram and Leora on one side, kids on the other. Bram cleared his throat. Should I say grace? The audacity. The sheer audacity of this man who'd stolen from widows and forged his father's signature, now asking to bless our meal. "Please?" I said. He bowed his head. "Lord, thank you for this food, for family, for blessings we don't deserve, for a mother who never gives up on us. Amen." You're right about one thing, I thought. You don't deserve any of this. We started eating. Small talk. Weather. Jake's baseball team. Leora's fake business expansion. Every word out of her mouth a lie, delivered with a smile. I pushed food around my plate, barely tasting anything. Waiting. After the main course, before dessert, I stood up. I need the kids to do me a favor, I said. Lily, honey, would you take Jake to Earl's house? He's got apple pie waiting for you. Jake frowned. But you made pumpkin pie. Adult conversation, sweetheart. Go on now. Lily understood immediately, grabbed Jake's hand. Come on, let's go. Bram half stood. Mum, what's going on? I waited until the front door closed, until it was just the three of us in that dining room with the hidden camera recording every word. Sit down, Bram. Something in my voice made him obey. I walked to the sideboard, retrieved the manila folder I'd hidden underneath, slammed it on the table. Dishes rattled, candle flames flickered, ledgers spilled across the white tablecloth, bank statements, photocopies of forged signatures. The brass key rolled across the china, coming to rest against Leora's wineglass. I found everything, I said. Bram went white, fork frozen halfway to his mouth. Leora's face drained of colour. Dory. What is this? Harlan's safety deposit box. I spread the papers out, one by one, deliberate. The USB drive Marcus sent me. Bank records. Forged signatures. Recordings of you planning my husband's death. I pulled out my phone, set it on the table, hit play. Leora's voice filled the room. Then maybe he needs to have an accident. Heart problems run in families. The recording played. Every damning word. When it ended, silence. Bram was shaking. Mom, you have to understand. Understand what? My voice was steel. That you forged my signature, stole my inheritance, ran a Ponzi scheme on our neighbors, that you and your wife stressed your father to death? I pulled out the victim list, started reading names. Margaret Henderson, Richard Kowalski, Earl Davis, Pauline Lawson, 19 families, $147,000 stolen from people who trusted the Whittaker name. Each name was a hammer blow. I watched Bram flinch with everyone. Leora recovered first, always did. Those are business disputes, not crimes. You can't prove. I can prove all of it. I pulled out the forged quitclaim deed. This is your signature, Bram. Except it's not, is it? You forged your father's name to steal our house. It's not stealing, he said weakly. I'm your son. It would have been mine eventually. Eventually! The word exploded out of me. After I was dead. After you'd wrung every penny from me first. Bram stood suddenly, chair scraping back. His hands were shaking, eyes wild. He looked trapped, desperate. You don't understand, he said. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It started small. Just a few shortcuts. Then Leora said we could make real money. Shut up, Leora hissed. Don't say another word. But Bram wasn't listening. The dam had broken. Confession poured out like water. Dad found out last year. Tried to make me stop. But I couldn't. I owed too much. I'd stolen from Mum's inheritance, forged her signature. I thought one big score would fix everything, but it just got worse. He grabbed the carving knife from the turkey platter. Leora screamed. But Bram wasn't threatening anyone. He started stabbing at the papers, trying to shred them, destroy the evidence in blind panic. I'll destroy this. You can't prove anything without these. Bram, stop. Leora was screaming, scrambling for her purse, her phone. The back bedroom door opened. Earl walked out. Then Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Kowalski, Widow Lawson, all of them, one by one, witnesses. Bram dropped the knife. It clattered on the table, harmless. Mrs. Henderson walked up to him, looked him in the eye. She was barely 5 feet tall, used a walker, but in that moment, she was a giant. You took my life savings, she said quietly, looked me in the eye at church and lied, shook my hand with the same hand you used to forge checks. Bram collapsed into his chair, started sobbing, great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. Mum, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this. It just spiraled. I couldn't stop. Sorry doesn't rebuild Margaret's deck, I said. My voice was cold. Empty. Sorry doesn't undo the hell you put your father through. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Bram looked up at me, tears streaming. I know. I know I killed him. I live with it every day. The guilt is eating me alive. Good, I said. Leora made one last desperate play. Lunged for the back door. Earl blocked it. All 6'2" of him, arms crossed. She spun toward the front door, but it was opening already. Sheriff Bellamy walked in, deputy behind him. Bram Whitaker, Leora Whitaker, Tom said formally. You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy. The handcuffs clicked. That soft metallic sound. Final. Bram didn't resist, just hung his head, crying. But Leora fought, screamed. As they put the cuffs on, she turned to me, face twisted with hate. You'll regret this, old woman. You just destroyed your own family. Your grandkids will hate you. You'll die alone in this house with nobody who loves you. I met her eyes. Didn't flinch. Better alone with integrity than surrounded by thieves. They led them toward the door. The deputy was reading them their rights, words I'd only heard on TV crime shows. Now happening in my dining room. Bram stopped at the door, looked back one last time. Mum, his voice broke. Please. For a second, just a second, I almost wavered. He was my son, my baby, the boy I'd carried and raised and loved. But then I thought of Harlan, dying of stress while Bram lied to him, of Mrs. Henderson's empty flower boxes, of Widow Lawson unable to bathe safely, of 19 families destroyed. I turned my back. The door closed. Silence. The dining room was a disaster. Papers everywhere. Turkey cold on the platter. Wine spilled on the tablecloth, red like blood. The victims stood around me. I expected them to be celebrating. Justice served. Victory. But everyone just looked tired. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson said quietly. She hugged me. You gave us justice when nobody else would. You lost your son, Mr. Kowalski said. That couldn't have been easy. I lost my son years ago, I said. I just didn't realize it until now. Earl squeezed my shoulder. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. One by one they left, until it was just me in my dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of Thanksgiving dinner and 42 years of family lies. I sat down at the table, picked up my untouched wine glass, took a sip. I'd won. So why did I feel so empty? That night, after everyone left, I cleaned up alone, scraped cold turkey into containers, washed my mother's china by hand, couldn't put those delicate plates in the dishwasher, folded the stained tablecloth, knowing I'd never be able to look at it again without seeing this day. The house was so quiet. For the first time in my life, I understood what people meant when they talked about deafening silence. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of loss, echoing off empty walls. I'd won, gotten justice, protected the victims, and I'd lost everything that mattered. My son was in jail. My daughter-in-law was in jail. My grandchildren were traumatized. My family name, the one Harlan had been so desperate to protect, was now synonymous with fraud and betrayal in Elmwood. I sat at my kitchen table at midnight, staring at nothing, and wondered if I'd made the right choice. That's when I remembered. The USB drive Marcus sent. I'd been so focused on the recordings, the evidence, the planning. I'd never watched Harlan's video all the way through. I pulled out my iPad, found the file. There was a second video I hadn't noticed before, dated May 27th, one day before he died. I hesitated. Did I want to see this? Hear his voice again? Face whatever last words he'd left? My finger hovered over the play button. Then I pressed it. Harlan's face filled the screen. He looked even worse than in the first video. Pale, exhausted, like a man at the absolute end of his rope. "Dory," he said, and his voice was so soft I had to turn up the volume. "This is my last message to you. Tomorrow I'm going to tell Bram I'm calling the police. I'm done covering for him, done enabling him, done sacrificing you for his crimes. He took a shaky breath. I know what will happen. I know the stress will probably kill me. My heart's been acting up for weeks, but I'd rather die doing the right thing than live one more day as a coward. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And it means you found everything I left for you. The trust, the evidence, the insurance money. I need you to know something. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I enabled our son's evil because I was too proud to admit I'd failed as a father. I chose reputation over righteousness, comfort over courage. But Dory, you won't make that mistake. I know you. You're stronger than me, braver than I ever was. You'll do what I couldn't. Hold Bram accountable. Save those victims. Show the world that the Whittaker name can still mean something good. He leaned closer to the camera, and I could see tears in his eyes. Here's what I want you to know. Whatever you're feeling right now, guilt, grief, doubt, it's okay. You did the right thing, the hard thing, the thing that breaks your heart but saves your soul. Bram will hate you for a while, maybe forever. The town will gossip. Some people will say you should have protected your son, kept it in the family, stayed quiet. But years from now, when you look back on this moment, you'll know you chose justice over loyalty, truth over comfort, protecting the vulnerable over protecting the guilty. That's love, Dory. Real love, not the fake kind that enables and excuses. The kind that says, I love you too much to watch you destroy yourself and others. So if you're sitting there wondering if you made the right choice, you did. Trust me. Trust yourself. I love you. I will always love you. And I'm finally, proud of the man I became in these last few weeks. The man who chose you over our son's crimes. Rest easy, my dear. You finished what I started. You were the warrior I never was. Now go live. Help those victims. Build that foundation. Teach people about elder abuse. Turn our tragedy into something that protects others. And Dory, forgive yourself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting too much, for loving too much. None of this is your fault. I'm so sorry. And I'm so grateful I got to spend 42 years with you. The video ended. I sat there crying, not the ugly sobs from before, just quiet tears rolling down my cheeks. Harlan had known he was going to die, known what I'd have to do, and he'd left me this, permission to grieve, to doubt, to hurt, but also to know I'd done right. Thank you, I whispered to the empty kitchen. Thank you for finally being brave. The next week, I met with Gerald to activate the trust. The house was mine, completely. Bram's forged quitclaim deed was worthless. I had a home, security, safety, and $150,000 to make things right. I want to pay back every victim, I told Gerald. Every penny. We calculated it out. The 19 families had lost a total of $147,000. The trust had $150,000, enough to repay everyone in full, with $3,000 left over. Over the next month, I personally delivered checks to each victim. Mrs. Henderson cried when I handed her $8,000. I can get my deck now. A real contractor this time. Mr. Kowalski looked at the check for $12,000 and said, My roof. I can fix my roof before winter. Earl tried to refuse. Dory, this isn't your debt. It's my son, my family name, my responsibility. One by one, I repaid them all. The look on their faces, relief, gratitude, justice. That's when I knew I'd done the right thing. 6 months passed. Bram was convicted of fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse. Got 10 years. Could be out in 7 with good behavior. Leora got 8 years for tax evasion, fraud, and conspiracy. They lost everything. Their house, their cars, their freedom. Marcus testified against his own sister. Told me afterward, hardest thing I ever did, and the most necessary. I took the remaining $3,000 and added my own savings. Founded the Harlan Whittaker Foundation for Elder Protection. Every Wednesday, I teach workshops at the community center. Protecting yourself from financial predators. even family. 30, sometimes 40 elderly people show up. I teach them the warning signs, how to protect their assets, how to say no to manipulative relatives, how to recognize fraud. I tell them my story, all of it. Don't sugarcoat anything. And I tell them, family isn't a free pass to hurt you. Love doesn't mean enabling harm. Real love includes accountability. Lily visits every week now. She's 17, working part-time, saving for college. She hasn't visited Bram in prison. I can't forgive what he did to you, she tells me. What he did to those people. Grandma, you showed me what real strength looks like. Jake struggles more. He's 13, sees a therapist, visits me once a month. He went to see Bram once, came home crying. He tried to blame you, Jake told me. Said you destroyed the family. But Grandma, he's the one who stole from people, right? Right, I said. Then he destroyed the family. Not you. Smart boy. Going to be okay. Today, I'm standing at Harlan's grave. It's a clear spring morning, 6 months after Thanksgiving. Birds singing, flowers blooming, the kind of day that makes you believe in resurrection, in new beginnings. I place fresh flowers on his headstone, daffodils, his favorite. You tried, I say to the granite marker. You failed us for a long time, but in the end, you chose truth, and that's enough. I miss you. I hate the secrets you kept, but I understand why you kept them. Fear makes cowards of us all. Rest now, old man. Your conscience is clear, and so is mine. I turn to walk away, then pause. Look back. Oh, and Harlan. Bram writes me letters from prison, wants me to visit, wants reconciliation. I haven't answered. Maybe I never will. Some people think that makes me cruel, cold, unforgiving, but I think it makes me honest. Family isn't a free pass. Blood doesn't erase consequences. Love includes accountability. You taught me that lesson the hard way, but you taught it. I walk away from the cemetery, shoulders straight, face peaceful. The sun is warm on my face. Life continues. I continue. That evening, I record a video for my YouTube channel. The foundation has one now. Lily set it up for me. I sit in my kitchen, looking at the camera, and I speak directly to whoever's watching. My name is Eudora Whitaker. I'm 68 years old, and 6 months ago, I turned my son into the police for fraud and elder financial abuse. Some of you watching this think I'm a hero. Some think I'm a monster. Some are probably sitting there wondering, could I do what she did? Could I choose justice over family? I don't know if you could. I didn't know if I could either, until the moment came. But here's what I've learned. Evil people depend on good people's silence. They count on family loyalty, on shame, on fear of scandal. They weaponize love against us. My son and daughter-in-law stole from 19 elderly people. They stressed my husband to death. They tried to steal my home. And they thought I'd stay quiet because I'm their mother. Because family comes first. But family doesn't come first. People come first. Justice comes first. Protecting the vulnerable comes first. If my story made you angry, angry at how Bram betrayed his mother, angry at how they preyed on innocent neighbors, then prove you're nothing like them. Subscribe to this channel. Share these videos. Learn the warning signs of financial abuse. Teach your elderly relatives to protect themselves. If you think Leora's venom, that hissing, "you'll die alone," represents everything wrong with greedy, heartless people, leave a comment. Tell me what you'd have done in my position. Tell me your own stories of family betrayal, because you're not alone. Like this video if you believe justice matters more than keeping peace. Subscribe if you believe in protecting the vulnerable, even when it costs you everything. And comment if you've ever faced a betrayal like mine. Share your story. Help someone else find the courage to speak up. I lean closer to the camera, because here's the truth. Bram and Leora win every time someone stays silent. Every time a victim feels too ashamed to report. Every time family loyalty trumps accountability. Don't let them win. Don't let anyone steal your voice. Don't let anyone use family as a weapon against you. I sit back. This is Eudora Whitaker reminding you, family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shares your values. Choose wisely, fight hard, and never ever let anyone tell you that love means accepting abuse. Thank you for watching. And remember, you're stronger than you think, braver than you know, and you deserve justice. Now go get it. I smile at the camera. A real smile. The first genuine one I've felt in months. Then I turn off the recording. Later that night, I sit on my front porch, watching fireflies dance in the dusk. The house is mine. My integrity is intact. 19 families have their money back. A foundation exists to protect others. I'm alone. Bram's in prison. Leora's in prison. The Whitaker name is forever tainted in Elmwood. But I can sleep at night. I can look at myself in the mirror. I can walk down Main Street with my head high. And that's worth everything I lost. A grandmother's love isn't about protecting her children from consequences. It's about teaching them that actions matter, that victims matter, that justice matters. I loved Bram enough to stop him, to save his future victims, to show him that even a mother's love has limits. Some people will never understand that, but I do. And tonight, sitting on my porch with fireflies dancing and stars coming out, and the weight of the world finally off my shoulders, I'm at peace. In the meantime, on the final screen, I'm leaving you with two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until now.